shall we start our meeting to hear our young people? And I want to welcome you, but before I should say that we have translation, interpretation. Deutsch. German. Number 1, English 2, French 3, Italian 4, Spanish 8, Portuguese, and I should speak Portuguese. I'm sorry to the interpreters today, but I will speak English. Sorry. And Polish number 8 and 18, sorry, and Romanian in number 22. So I want to welcome you all for all you here in the room and those connected online. We have a lot of people online also. A special greeting to the young participants who traveled from Spain, invited by our colleague Marcos Ros Sampere. Your presence matters because today's discussion is shaped around your lived reality, your hopes and your concerns. We start first with a video from our president of S&D Group, Irache Perez Garcia, which is not possible to be here today to welcome you, but we will see the video, please.
Sí, queridos jóvenes. Instagram, Twitter y TikTok.
Instagram, Twitter and TikTok have changed our lives. We are living in a time when the digital world is not just a tool, but a place where people create opinions, projects and communities. It is a space which is full of opportunities, but also responsibilities. I would like to welcome you to this event organised by my colleague Hannes Haider, where we'll be talking about how all of you can actively participate both online and offline, and to think about how you use this technology. This meeting is an opportunity to listen to each other, to learn together, and to think about new ways to build a digital future that are more inclusive, creative, and human. The digital transformation is something that is that you are part of, your energy, your talent, and your skills. I hope you'll be part of this discussion, that you will participate, you will help inspire. Today, we can create better social networks in a world for everybody. Thank you.
Thanks again, and thanks to our president for this video, and also to our colleague for organize, and to Anne, our coordinator, to organize this meeting with you today, because we think that we gather to talk about empowering youth in both online and offline. As Irache said, it's the new generation, and it's easier to communicate with everybody if we are online. But let me begin with a simple truth. We think that youth are not only the future of the European Union, but the present, because you are building already our future. Your energy, your creativity, and your courage is already shaping the Europe that we live today. Yet across our union, young people are confronted with some of the greatest challenges on our time. First of all, housing crisis, and that's why we are working on S&D Group to have a strategic to housing, and especially for young people. The labor market, who faces a lot of challenges, not only on the sustainable way to work, but also the digital revolution that we have. That means more flexibility on the on labor market, but also a strong security. And the rapid rise of artificial intelligence that reshapes education, work, and democratic life at an unprecedented speed. So you are invited today to discuss with us the future of our democracy and of our democracies, because the EA will play a role very, very important on these new ages that we live. As socialists and democrats, we must be clear: empower young Europeans is not a slogan for us, but is really a priority, a political priority. We had the last 2 days a meeting of S&D Bureau, and during 2 days, one of our priorities was to work with young people, and you have the group who has the biggest number of young MEPs, which is a responsibility for us, but also to work with them. And that's why today what I think that we should have, as Irache Perez Garcia said, we need to have, especially to hear your voice, to know what are your concerns and how you can help us to build the policies that will change your lives. Not only on housing, not only on work market, not only on democracy, but especially how can we bring more young people to political life, and especially how can we commit young people with the challenges of our democracies. I see here my colleague Rotolo, and I can assure you that one of the problems that we have today in our European Union is non-independent media. And that's why you should hear him also, to share with you their concerns, but also the solutions that we can try to have and to improve here in the European Parliament, to have a better social media, better press media, and especially how can we implement the Freedom Press Act to our journalists. So I hope that you have a very good afternoon discussing with those who are responsible to make policies, but especially that we can share your concerns and, if you can, your creativity and your solutions for this world that we as social and democrats want to be more solidar, more with more solidarity and more social justice. So welcome once again and have a nice afternoon. And I give the floor, I'm sorry, always the papers. I give the floor to our coordinator, who is very young on his spirit as me,
okay,
but very young to work with you this afternoon. Hannes, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Anna Katarina, and welcome to you all here in the European Parliament. Let me first thank our S&D Cult Secretariat for organizing this event, and it will be a great opportunity for us to discuss and to exchange, and I'm really looking forward, because we meet in a moment when democracy is under pressure, the European Union is under threat. There are attacks from inside the European Union and from outside. So in several member states, we are witnessing a systematic dismantling of liberal democracy, an erosion of the political center, and a rapidly accelerating spread of disinformation and the spread of hate speech on so-called social media. I call them internet platform because they are neither social nor media, has reached a shocking level. Discrimination, cyberbullying, and anti-Semitism are spreading like wildfire. Citizens are exposed to these anti-democratic messages on platforms such as X or TikTok without any meaningful protection. And just last night, I had to see a video on X denying the Holocaust. And in this context, the role of young people is more than important, and you navigate both the online and offline world every day, and you see clearly where our societies succeed and where they fall short. And as social democrats, we are convinced that you are the future of Europe. You're the main actors in shaping that future, not observers, not an afterthought, but partners. And young people are convinced about the spirit and the idea of the European Union. And your experiences guide how we should legislate, how we should respond to digital challenges, and how we should strengthen our democracies. So for today's conference, we designed 2 panels. The first panel will be chaired by Sandro Rutolo and will explore youth and democracy in the digital age. Sandro is a rapporteur for the European Parliament's report on the impact of social media on young people and contributes to the European Media Freedom Act Working Group and the Artificial Intelligence Working Group. He is well placed to bring today's reflections back to the committee's ongoing work. And the second panel will be chaired by our youngest MEP in the group, but committed and experienced MEP Sabrina Repp. This panel will look at building resilient societies. Sabrina works on the evaluation of the youth strategy and on the future of Erasmus Plus within the next financial framework, bringing a strong and fresh perspective to these debates. These 2 panels will allow us to address opportunities and challenges, so I invite you all to participate actively and to share your experience, because your voice is essential. So I want now ask Sandro Rutolo to come up the stage and to take the floor and introduce the first panel and the speakers. Thank you. I will follow.
Eccomi.
Here I am. Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to give my own joke about youth and the elderly. Anis is young like me. We're young when you think of other people. You're diversely young when you think of the youth, but you're also old when you say, I remember when. And we're here and we're committed to young people because we still believe that politics serves the purposes of changing the world, and therefore we are young at heart and in mind, even when we're 70 years of age, with that thought in mind. I'd like to begin by thanking President Irache for her words, and Vice President Anna Katerina and Hannes, who is our coordinator, for their opening words. And I should like to call to the front table our experts, Manon Letouche, who is head of EU affairs at the Five Rights Foundation, Franz Werner, who is a project manager at Action Civil Courage, and Stephanie Quintao, who is a senior manager and public policy and government relations and minor safety at TikTok. Before I give them the floor, I should like to just provide a few thoughts on the work that I'm carrying out in the Culture Committee. A year back, I was appointed the rapporteur on the report on the impact of social media on young people. Welcome.
Un applauso, no?
A warm round of applause, please. And as many of you know, the European Parliament does not have the power of initiative for legislation. Nonetheless, it can, via acts, call on the committee to fill a legal loophole that might exist. And of course, I'd like to just go back to what Anna Katerina said. She stated that the issue of disinformation and misinformation, well, that's becoming an increasingly important question, so that we can defend our liberal democracies that we've known to date. And so, if every time we go to President von der Leyen, President Metsola, and to all of the commissioners, and if we place that question at the heart of everything, and that issue would be the freedom of press. It is a non-negotiable, as Commissioner Magras has stated. Unfortunately, it is being called into question on a daily basis. Alas, that's not the subject of my speech this afternoon, but I did want to remain within the context of the suggestions that Vice President Mendes made. So this is going to be an extremely important law for the freedom of press, because it takes broadcasting, radio and television, and it protects them. Just remember that there is a drop in readership for newspapers, and young people are increasingly looking to social media for information. And that is where there is a flood of misinformation and fake news, and then the traditional press outlets in our countries are on the fall. And what our parents taught us about democracy in the US and in Canada, we know that that is the guardian of democracy. And what we have seen is that this has also had a huge impact. It is the guard dog of journalists. We've seen that there's been intimidation, that there have been threats, and there has been a lack of independence. Now, this initiative comes from something that we see on a daily basis, the emergency of, we see this with our children, in my case with my grandchildren. We see this with the young people in Europe. We want to make sure that they have a safe digital space, and it must be transparent and it must be human-centered. Many young people spend much time online, and it's a way for them to learn. And it also gives them an opportunity for creativity and civic mobilization. However, it also exposed them to risks such as harmful content, cyberbullying, pressure related to body image, disinformation, and design features that can encourage a compulsive use of this social media. Now, this impact on mental health can be significant, and we need policies that can respond to this reality. Europe has made great progress, and large part through the GDPR, the Digital Services Act, and the Audiovisual Media Services Directive, and the AI Act. Having said that, the legal framework remains fragmented, and enforcement is highly uneven. There are huge gaps in areas such as transparency when it comes to algorithms, the responsibility of influencers, and new AI systems that shape what young people see online. There's going to be an upcoming revision of the Audiovisual Media Services Directive, and that will be an important moment for us to strengthen protection for minors and to ensure clear rules for platforms and content creators. Now, regulation is essential, but it is not enough. The recent a financial penalty that was leveled against X is a step in the right direction. However, it is not enough. We need digital and media literacy. That remains key. Young people need the skills to be able to understand how content is shaped, but also how those algorithms work, and also how can they have a critical view to what they are seeing and viewing, how they can navigate online spaces with autonomy and confidence. Only in that way will our digital environments support participation in democratic life rather than undermining it. Now, this is the context for our discussions today. A European approach that is coherent, and it must combine empowerment, protection, and accountability such that our young people can thrive in the digital world. Protecting young people means that we need to defend their dignity, their freedom, and the future of Europe. Now, let this panel be more than a conversation. Let it be a platform for action. Thank you, and allow us to begin now our roundtable. I'll begin with Manon. She is the head of EU affairs at Five Rights Foundation. This is an international NGO that is dedicated specifically to children's rights in the online environment. Now, they work directly with children and young people, and they conduct research at the London School of Economics. Manon Latouche, the floor is yours. You have 5 to 7 minutes, madam.
Grazie mille. Hello. Thank you very much for inviting me. Indeed, at Five Rights Foundation, we work with children, teenagers to be exact, and young people, mostly through a network of young ambassadors. So today, to speak about empowerment, I will really try to ground my remarks into what they have been telling us about their realities in line, also their frustration and their solutions. So maybe to start, I would like to talk a little bit about the challenge. So we all know that 1 in 5 internet users in Europe is a minor. We all know that the digital world is not an option for them. It mediates almost every aspect of their life, their education, their play, their civic engagement, their participation to politics. When we talk about it, they are very clear that they want to be part of the digital environment, but our young ambassadors are also very clear that they are not happy with the current setup and that they want a more private, a more protective, and a more transparent digital world. And right now, the system that children and minors use every day are not delivering on their promises. The research that we lead show persistent systemic harm, and Mr. Ruotolo just told us a little bit about these harm and about those examples. Maybe to talk about one thing, it's maybe addiction. 4 in 10 kids say that they rarely disconnect from social media at all during the day. And yes, there are safeguards that were added into the system, but we need to ask ourselves, is it really working? Is it efficient enough? Last week, one 15-year-old told us in a consultation that she has now a reminder that tells her at 11 p.m. that she needs to go to sleep, but at the same time, there is a big button saying, you can have 10 minutes more. And she sees it as like a way to keep being in a loop or keep being addicted. So we really need to ask ourselves, is this enough at this point? I also wanted to talk about AI because we mentioned the fact that we need a coherent politics, but at the moment in Europe, we keep talking about AI, about competitiveness, about race, and in the same countries, governments want to restrict access to some very risky system, but at the same time, they're introducing chatbots in school, even though they didn't test them to make sure they are safe and to make sure that they are actually helping children to learn. So we really need to be careful about that and to make sure that we have a holistic approach and that we think about everything that children use. Maybe talking a little bit about the condition of empowerment for young people. The first condition is, of course, that the fundamental right must be absolutely respected. And one of these rights is the right to be heard, the right to have a voice. And the young people we talk to, they don't just describe the problems, they actually offer solution. A 16-year-old Belgian told us recently that we actually need to have this conversation together, adults and the youth. So today is actually a great opportunity also for us to listen to you, if we want right to matter in the digital world. Second condition, children and minors need agency online. So that means choices, not dark patterns. They need control over what they see, how long they stay, who use the data, for what, who can contact them, who can see the profile, if it's private or not. They really want to make those decisions themselves. They want transparency. They want to know if the content that they see is an ad or not, if it's AI or not. And one on AI specifically, a 16-year-old told us that they actually want to have the ability to opt out and to say, okay, I want to say no to this system to use my data, and I want to say no to this system to show me AI content. They want a choice. And the third condition, which is something that we advocate a lot about, is safety by design. Children cannot be empowered online if they are constantly manipulated into scrolling, spending, or taking risks that sometimes they don't fully understand according to their age. So empowerment requires privacy, safety, and security by design and by default. So upstream and not as an afterthought. So The good news is we already have a lot of tools to fill those conditions. We have international law, we have General Comment 25 of the United Nations on the Convention on the Right of the Child. We have great rules in Europe. Now we need to use them. And that's something that is really important because I don't think we can afford to wait for another 2 years to have a new regulation. We already have GDPR for privacy, AVMSD, for example, DSA, AI Act. So that's a great opportunity. But at the moment, I believe that those rules are at risk. There is a proposal that's called the Digital Omnibus that is actually examined at the moment. And this proposal is actually undermining children's privacy, and it's actually also delaying the protection that we could have against some AI system, including in school. So I think that we need to be very, very careful and draw a line and say we don't undermine the rules that we have when it comes to protecting minors. We have also the Audiovisual Media Services Directive, and also I think that this could be an opportunity to strengthen protection of minors, make it more coherent, clarify the rules, clarify the definition maybe, but it could also be a risk if we use this review to make it a deregulation step. So I'm calling for all politicians, don't take that direction, strengthen the rules, enforce them, and we need to do that right now. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your remarks. I think there are some 75 of us here in the room, and the José Planes Instituto is here, so welcome to all the students that are here from that school. Now we'd like to give the floor to Franz Werner, who is the project manager at Action Zivilcourage.
Ja, vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me here today and giving me the opportunity to speak to you all. I'm delighted to be able to contribute to this important discussion on young people and democracy in the digital age. As I said, I work for Zivilcourage. It's an organization from Saxony in Germany, and we work on political education. And it is from that context that I will now be talking about the experience we've had. The world of children and young people today takes place in the digital space, and it is determined by networks such as TikTok, YouTube, and Snapchat. Young people use these platforms, for example, for conversation, for relationship management, to express themselves creatively. But for a lot of these young people, these platforms are also a source of news and information. Now, in itself, this is not a problem, except that it runs counter to the design of the platforms. Platforms reward emotionalized content, they strengthen polarization, and they give anti-democratic players direct access to young people. Studies show that current affairs information and political content today is often consumed as accidental bycatch, if you like. In addition to content from politicians, parties, and from journalists, young people are also exposed to a huge amount of disinformation. Here, we mean fake content which primarily aims to confuse the general public about the facts, or to inject emotion into debates, to influence public opinion, and to build mistrust in state institutions and public service journalism. All of this has a direct impact on the decision-making process, although the actual extent of it cannot be measured. In our experience that we've had of working with young people, we've seen that many cannot correctly identify manipulative content. They often confuse opinion with fact, and they're often not very aware of just how much influence algorithms are having on their opinions. Against this background, it is clear. Disinformation is a real danger for democracy and social cohesion. The rapid development of AI will make it even harder in the future for people to navigate the information ecosystem. Young people face these dangers every day. People might think that digital natives have got better digital skills and therefore are more capable of recognizing manipulated content. However, according to a study from the University of British Columbia, Gen Z in particular is at risk of consuming and spreading disinformation. So it shows that an increased use of the digital world does not necessarily result in better digital skills. The international comparative study ICLIS has come to the conclusion that the digital skills of young people in Germany, and in fact in the majority of other participating countries, have actually worsened in recent years. In summary, we can conclude that even for digital natives, sensibly navigating digital media is a major challenge. However, this isn't a failing of our young people. This is a failing of our systems, both online and offline. It seems that information skills, meaning the ability to find, assess, use and communicate information in an aware, critical and goal-oriented fashion, is a key qualification for democracy. Handling information critically is vitally important for responsible participation in social discourse. Young people have to learn to check sources and to recognize manipulation. However, these are skills that are not systematically taught to them. There are already numerous initiatives in this area, but our experience shows again and again that not only are there gaps in people's knowledge, but that people often also overestimate their own skills, which makes them in turn even more vulnerable to disinformation. If we want young people to act democratically, then first we have to give them the skills they need to be able to properly evaluate information. So with an eye to the future, the following points are relevant. Firstly, the formation of political opinions should not be a byproduct in young people. Instead, it needs to happen consciously, with awareness. In order for this to happen, we need high-quality, trustworthy information sources on social networks. Secondly, information skills must be recognised as a key competence of liberal democratic societies and must be promoted as a central component of their education, regardless of family or social background. Thirdly, civil society actors who do important and effective work in this area need secure, long-term funding to ensure that there is as little red tape as possible standing in their way. And fourth, in order to recognise examples of best practice and to exchange vital experience, we need interdisciplinary and international exchange of experience. The future of democracy is not only decided in parliaments, it's also decided on young people's smartphones, and we must give them the tools they need to actively, consciously and democratically navigate the digital world. If we listen to them, bolster them and take them seriously, not only that will they become more resistant to disinformation, they will also become brave voices for our democracy in the future. Thank you very much.
Grazie. Thank you very much, Franz. Thank you for these remarks. I think that we, how can I put this, are building this platform for information online. We have more than 110 people who are currently following along our proceedings. I'd like to give the floor now to Stephanie Quintao, who is the Senior Manager for minor safety at TikTok. And she is in charge of all of measures to be taken to protect young people. Thank you.
To the S&D for organizing this very important topic and having us here. My name is Stephanie Quintao. I work at TikTok advancing their minor safety initiatives. We've got some nice little slides. For those that don't know, TikTok is a leading mobile video platform whose mission is to inspire creativity and to bring joy. We're described as a social media platform, and while we do have some social media elements like direct messaging, this is quite limited. We are first and foremost an entertainment platform, and people all around the world come to TikTok to discover new interests, find inspiration, learn new hobbies, skills, or even grow their business. And you can find all kinds of content on TikTok. Next slide, please. Anything from books, music, fashion, sports, gaming, the list goes on. And more than 200 million people in Europe now come to TikTok every month. Next slide, please. Young people, every day, teens around the world come to TikTok to express their creativity, connect with friends, and learn. But not only. They come to TikTok to have personal expression, to discover things, to find and build their own communities, as well as become activists and participate civically. And because teens are there, 13s and up, we build the strongest safeguards into teen accounts by default to help ensure young people have a positive experience on our app. On education, 25% of teens visit the STEM feed weekly. So this is TikTok's STEM feed, which is on by default for any account under 18 years old, where it's science, technology, engineering, math, and it's full of rich and engaging content. And it's very much our goal to have young people discover and enjoy these aspects in STEM. We work with common sense networks to assess the content, as well as with Pointer to make sure that it's reliable. And if it does not pass both of these checkpoints, it is not eligible for the STEM feed. And beyond personal expression and discovery, TikTok has become a space where young people can engage in activism and civic participation. They use their voices to raise awareness about important issues, support causes they believe in, and encourage thoughtful dialogue within their communities. Many participate in breaking down complex topics, sharing diverse viewpoints, and helping others stay informed. And many politicians and MEPs in Europe have TikTok accounts where they explain their points of view and causes, and they're meeting young people where they are, which is on TikTok. Even President Ursula von der Leyen live-streamed her State of the Union address on TikTok. So this goes into the digital and democratic inclusion of young people on TikTok. Several wonderful colleagues here on the panel mentioned media literacy, and we very much agree. Empowering our community is a key pillar of our strategy, which includes young people. We want young people to be empowered and to make sure that they have access to accurate information. So we launched a media literacy campaign across Europe to help users, especially teens, critically assess content, identify misinformation, and access reliable sources. And then we also work with researchers and fact checkers to strengthen our defenses against any kind of misinformation. So working with these fact checkers in all official EU languages, we ensure quick verification and responses to any kind of disinformation trend. So beyond enabling our users to report misinformation, we share this granular data with academic institutions and civil society so that we can foster research into the spread of disinformation so that we can prevent it in the future. And on our Transparency Center, which is available for anyone to visit, we provide key insights and data to regulators and other stakeholders supporting our collaborative efforts to combat any kind of misinformation. And listening to the experience of young people is one of the most important steps in our eyes to take the best approach to build a safe platform for teens and their families. It helps us avoid designing teen safety solutions that may not be effective or they might be inadequate for the actual community they're meant to protect. We have a brilliant youth council made up of 15 teenagers from around the world where we listen to them on a regular basis. We listen to their experiences, take their feedback to improve our platform and our safeguards. And we actually just launched our time and well-being space, which is, for those of you who know TikTok, is a place where you can find how long you've spent on TikTok. You can set reminders to take a screen break and also have some meditation guidelines. And this all came from our youth council. So they have real impact at TikTok. And with all of this, we're committed to safety by design and the creation of a welcoming environment that keeps our platform and communities safe for teenagers. We fully agree with European policymakers that protecting young people online must be a priority, and we feel that we're leading the industry in doing so. You might be surprised to know that on TikTok, teen accounts have more than 50 preset safety features and designs made just for them. These safety by design features were not created in a vacuum by TikTok arbitrarily. We consulted child psychologists and specialists in teen development to make sure that as teens develop, so do their experiences on TikTok. The TikTok that you and I would have, for example, is very different from what a teenager would experience. And these are industry leading by far. So for example, people under the age of 16 do not have access to direct messaging. And even if you are above the age of 16, we only let you communicate with friends. People must be 18 to host a live stream, and they must pass extra age verifications. Other platforms let kids stream at 13. We take down any accounts of underage users, and we're the only company that openly publishes this information in our transparency center. So last month globally, we took down 6 million underage accounts. And we take a proactive approach to keep our community safe. We aim to remove content that violates our rules before they're even viewed or shared. So whether it's automated or a human evaluation, we take both of these actions, making sure that our community guidelines are not violated. And how teens spend their time on TikTok is something that we've thought a lot about. Time on our platform should be intentional and balanced. And we support our community in a multitude of ways. So every teen under 18 has a screen time limit set to 60 minutes by default. We don't send notifications at bedtime, and we've made it easier for parents to choose when their teens can't be on TikTok at all. So this could be a screen time limit at night, during school hours, or even during family dinners. For us, there's no endpoint to safety, and we're constantly evolving to make it a safe space for all users, especially our youngest users. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So that brings us to the questions. We have listened to these 3 different points of view up here, and we've heard various different possibilities discussed. So now it's over to you. If you've got any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Please just raise your hand.
Mon nom c'est Stella Veliki. Moi, je étudiais
I studied physics and IT. I'm a member of the Young Physical Society in Europe, and I've got a question to the representative from TikTok. I believe that it is the most aggressive algorithm that I know at the moment, TikTok's one. 80% of the news that you've got on TikTok is fake news. And so my question to you is, you've apparently got 50 security measures on TikTok, but what measures have you got in place that actually helps a user to work out if something is fake news or not? You can't influence perhaps whether or not they're going to believe what they see, but you can tell them or indicate that it might be fake news. So my question to you is it possible for us to teach young people ways of working out what is fake news in universities and in schools? Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you very much. I think perhaps we'll have another question before we hear some answers.
Prego.
Hola, me presento, soy María del Instituto.
My name is Maria from the Jose Planes Institute, and I would like to ask Mrs. Quintao what she thinks about the loss in attention span, all of this very quick information that we are receiving, particularly in TikTok, one that's most used by young people.
Grazie. Ancora.
Thank you very much. I can see another question. Let's take 3 at once. So go ahead.
Good afternoon, and I also have a question to Ms. Quintao. You have said that many young people enjoy TikTok, yet research shows the platform can harm mental health and push users into harmful, even extremist bubbles. Will TikTok make its algorithm more transparent and take active measures to prevent these mental health risks and forms of radicalization?
Prego, Stephanie.
Please, Stephanie, go ahead.
Would you like me to answer all 3? Or?
Può rispondere.
Thank you for the questions. So in terms of the media literacy question, thank you for that question. in terms of media literacy on TikTok, we've launched different campaigns all across Europe to help users, especially teens, to be able to identify and assess content and to access reliable sources. Like I mentioned, we work with fact checkers, so anything that becomes very visible on TikTok, those go through our trusted fact checkers to strengthen any kind of misinformation that's becoming a trend. We also enable our users to report any kind of misinformation. So if you as a user say, this doesn't look right to me, you're able to report this misinformation and then see during the response time it takes to take this down. In terms of AI and that kind of misinformation, we do have tags on videos that are AI-generated content. So in the same thing, when someone is trying to sell a product, we have a tag that says this is an advertisement, this is a paid advertisement. The same thing happens for AI, where it says this is not a real video, it's an AI-generated video. The second question on attention span. So TikTok videos can range from anything between 10 seconds to 10 minutes. A majority of the videos will go between maybe 30 seconds to 2 minutes, but that's part of the entertainment and joyfulness of TikTok, that it's able to inspire creativity and have people be able to create and dissect information in a short amount of time. Through that, you can, I know a lot of young people use it to discover what kind of vacation spots they want to go to, or they'll say, oh, I saw this thing happened, on an episode of my favorite TV show. What's someone's reaction to it? And we're working diligently to make sure that the content on it is good content and robust, and that it's age appropriate for teenagers. On the mental health elements, we recognize that some content might be distressing for any user, but especially for teenagers. And we're very committed to safeguarding these teenagers. So we have a huge amount of trust and safety specialists working around the clock to make sure that harmful content doesn't even ever get to TikTok. And if it does, they work diligently to remove that kind of content, to make sure that it doesn't have any reach to not only teenagers, but to the general public. These trust and safety specialists and these content moderators are always trying to find the new trend, the new thing that might be distressing, and we work as hard as we can to remove any of those. Of course, those things sometimes do fall through the cracks, but as soon as we become aware of something, it is immediately removed. So like I mentioned, we use both automated and human evaluation to detect and to take action against any kind of violations of our community guidelines.
Grazie.
Thank you very much. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm from the ES, from the youth wing of the PvdA in the Netherlands. I've got a question for Ms. Quintado. Two Amnesty International reports have shown that many teenagers are experiencing depression and are even being suicidal because of the algorithm of TikTok, because they push suicidal and self-harm videos on TikTok. What have you changed since that report? Because for what I know, people are still becoming depressive because of TikTok. Thank you.
Eu vou falar em português. I'm going to speak in Portuguese. I've heard a lot of languages, and I want to give a bit of work for the interpreters as well. Então,
my question for Ms. Quintao and also for Ms. Latouche and Mr. Werner, what in the civil society can we do? Today, we hear that young people, or we feel that young people are less and less interested in activism, and they are increasingly and frequently activists. And so what can civil society do to rally young people, and to politicians and companies? What can they do to help to counter misinformation? And how can they make sure that they are showing what is absolutely relevant for young people and important for young people? What are the best steps that can be taken to make sure that this happens? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a third question and then we'll have the answers. Please go ahead.
First of all, thank you all for talking about these issues that are pretty important for all of us, young people. I would like to ask more about the implementation across all member states. How can we ensure that media literacy is the same across all young people, even in their educational systems? Like, how can we ensure that all young people are equally informed? Thank you.
Bene, allora,
Okay, thank you very much. So we've taken 3 questions. Let's let Stephanie breathe for a second. We'll pass the floor perhaps to Franz first and then to Manon.
Intervenire.
Ja, danke.
Thank you very much. With regards to education around media, I think this is a systemic issue. It's something that's part of the education system. Having digital skills is something that should really be included in the curriculum at school. And I think this is going too slowly in Germany, at least. We have to look at the differences between technical skills. So we used to have IT lessons back in the day, but it really was looking at the more technical aspects. And we also have social skills, so how you can manage yourself on the internet. I think that's really not been taught enough. And then the second aspect is there, of course, a lot of civil society organizations that are active in this area and can provide another perspective compared to the education system. But these organizations often face financial and structural challenges to try and get across these ideas. They don't necessarily have that much reach. They have to think about their financing. It takes up a lot of time, and there is a lot of important work with their target groups that falls by the wayside sometimes. So I think it would be helpful to have more long-term stable financing available so they could really focus on their work with target groups and also a stronger network between them as well. So work isn't duplicated in other areas, missed out on altogether. There's a lot of rural areas in Germany, in the EU, and I think it's important to do work there too and not just in urban areas. Thank you.
Manon.
Thank you for your question. Well, it's a difficult time to be involved, to be honest, and it's a very difficult context at the moment. Maybe my first answer would be to get involved in an association like ours, for example. Our network of young ambassadors, they are sometimes invited to speak in events. They are invited to participate in podcasts, and we always use their voice to bring awareness to politicians. So in every place where I speak, I always use the testimony that our ambassador have given us. So that's a first way. A second way is to put pressure on politicians, of course, sorry. I think that you need to keep going to demonstration. You need to keep expressing yourself. You need to keep maintaining the pressure all the time, because we talk a lot about corporate responsibility and it is a key element. But what we see is that the change that we're talking about, they only happen when there is a stick. And if European Commission, for example, don't make decision to regulate and don't put fine on or have a dialogue with a company when they don't respect the law, regulation doesn't work. So pressure is actually very important. The third part is express yourself, bring awareness, talk to parents, talk to media, put something interesting on TikTok. And 4, vote. please do. Because in some country, like in mine, for example, we can vote for the European election at 16 years old. And I think that those voices can actually change the context in which we live. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you. Stephanie, go ahead.
Sure, I'm happy to answer the question on mental health. So we appreciate the concern that young people have about digital devices and apps, and how, as an industry, we can support people to make better choices when it comes to how they spend their time online. So if the aim is for these digital experiences to play a positive role in how we express ourselves, discover ideas, and connect, then there's no one-size-fits-all approach to how much screen time is right, for example. So we aim to empower people to make the right choices for them. So that's why we continue to invest in our screen time management tools, from custom sleep times to reminders, to make sure that people are intentional about how they spend their time. So parents also have the ability to pair their phones so that they're able to see what their teens are watching, and then again be able to customize any kind of screen time limits and decide when it's best for the teen to not have access to TikTok at all. And then we also work with independent experts to inform our work about digital well-being, to make sure that the platform reflects this and any best practices that come.
Grazie.
Thank you. All right, we'll have one final round of questions then. We'll take 3 questions. Please, at the back.
Hi, my name is Sausin Jezouli. I'm Policy and Communication Officer at an NGO called Diaspora Vote, where we try to foster racialized European youth participation, especially. And my question isn't actually one. I wanted to add up to what Manon was already saying about participation. You mentioned voting, and I think outside of voting, participating in demonstration, as well as engaging with civil society organizations, there are many ways for young people at EU level to engage that are still very little to well known. For example, you have what we called youth policy dialogue that happened with commissioners at EU level to discuss specific topics and how they impact young people. You also have what we call the consultation process. Whenever there's a policy coming up, the European Commission will open an online portal where people can basically submit their opinion and input. And I think that those are tools that we still have little knowledge of, and that young people need to basically foster and really appropriate themselves. So that would be my remark.
Prego.
Yes, my name is Adrian Martin Sanchez. I'm part of the Global Human Rights Defense, an NGO focusing on minority rights. My question would be directed towards Mrs. Quintao. According to previous statements of the European Union, some mechanisms like the infinite scrolling negatively affect the young generation's mental health and also increase digital addiction because of continuous consumption. And also, since some years ago, we can see these harmful effects of the addictive social media, where teenagers are the most vulnerable people. So in this sense, I have 2 questions. I would like to know if beyond standard screen time reminders or also parental control, how does TikTok specifically evaluate their current interface of infinite scroll? And also if TikTok is considering a different mechanism that addresses such techniques of endless scrolling and automatic play. Thank you.
L'ultima domanda, prego.
One final question, please. Go ahead.
As teenagers live online, yet I don't get the feeling that we are really, that no one is taking care of our safety. Inappropriate content is really common in TikTok, and I was wondering if there are any more measures that are going to be taken, because it really is a concerning issue.
Allora, deroghiamo.
Okay, we'll make the exception. Go on, but last one, please.
Meriti.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Ms. Quintao. and beyond the EU level. I'm from Turkey, and as you might know, like Turkey has one of the highest TikTok users in the world because of the rise in distrust, like to the mainstream media among the young people. And now one of the highest agenda in Turkey is like the rising youth organized crime organizations, and especially TikTok is controversial because there is a lot of promotion of like these organizations through TikTok, and these are affecting the EU countries too. So my question is, you are talking about media literacy implementation across Europe. I was wondering if you are doing similar measures in countries like Turkey, Georgia, Serbia, Armenia, whose media is much more fragile. People are much more looking to the alternatives like TikTok. And obviously there is also a bigger Russian influence in that regard. So I was wondering if you are doing similar work in those countries as well, which is pretty needed. Thank you.
Allora, io direi...
Okay, thank you very much. I'd suggest we pass the floor perhaps first to Manon. If you could take the question on participation, and then we'll move down, perhaps Stephanie afterwards.
Well, yes, the question on participation was more a remark than a question, but maybe I'm going to take the opportunity to go back to something that just been said about the vulnerability of teenagers. It is something that is also very clear in our research, that even though we mentioned, and it was said in the panel, that we think that young people are digital native and that they're actually super ready to face all the risk online, but it is not exactly true, and notably because the development of the brain is not over. And there is one aspect that is very important linked to attention span, is the idea of brain rot. It was a word that was the English dictionary word last year, brought by children because they were also aware of the impact that scrolling not always very interesting content can do on their brain. So I think that we need to be extremely careful with that. And about the measure that could be taken, I just want to remind you also that there are already guidelines on protection of minors that exist in the European Union, with a large set of rules that can be implemented to make sure that children are protected online, for example, by putting by default protection for the privacy, for the account, and that if those guidelines were already super well implemented, we will already be much more protected. Thank you.
Fritz,
Franz, right before I give the floor back to Stephanie. Franz, if you'd like to add some comments, go ahead, please.
Prego.
Go ahead.
Danke. Ja, zu dem.
Thank you very much. I think on what's already been said, there's not too much more to add. I would just like to say that I think the responsibility isn't with young people themselves necessarily, but the system, both online and offline. Things need to change to protect young people better. And I think it's important there's more support for their democratic participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Go ahead.
On the question for Turkey, I can't answer specifically on the country of Turkey, but it's because it's not one that I'm familiar with, but I can find colleagues to point you in that direction if you find me afterwards. But I can speak about that any content that glorifies any kind of organized crime or mafia is strictly against our community guidelines and will be taken down. In the context of Italy, for example, we've partnered with Fondazione Magna Grecia, which is a globally recognized NGO that they're experts on organized crime. And we've also signed a memorandum of understanding to combat any kind of mafia content or organized crime content with the Italian Parliamentary Anti-Mafia Committee to establish a formal partnership, because these kinds of content are not allowed on TikTok, nor should they be.
Bene, allora.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to thank all of our experts, but first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for your questions. So, Anne, who organized this meeting in the Secretariat for this meeting, that is one that is on a subject that really involves all of us and is going to be central for everything that we are doing. Now, from what I have heard, what has emerged from our discussions is that young people are not requesting just protection, but they want recognition. They want to be able to inhabit spaces, digital spaces, without fearing abuse, manipulation, discrimination. And here, the platforms have an enormous responsibility. Now, it's clear that when we hear that there are some countries where you can vote at 16 years of age, we're looking at this discussion about bans. But at 16 years of age, people are voting. So, of course, yes, we need to work on protecting minors, but we need to first and foremost make sure that platforms are forced to make these spaces, these digital houses, inhabitable for our young people. So we need to work on algorithms, we need to work on digital sovereignty in Europe, and we need to guarantee transparency and correct application. Today, the digital world depends on an apex, a summit on the other side of the ocean, and that gets angry if Europe places fines on what it should place fines. Acts, the Third Reich, Trump. We're talking about we are the cradle of peace and of rights here in Europe and of rule of law, and we have to defend this. Now, I think what we need to focus on, and I'm so pleased to see that our group continues to reiterate the importance of the work that needs to be done on this digital revolution that is ongoing. So we have the regulation on the one hand, of course, but then digital sovereignty on the other. These are focal points. This is not something that is astride politics, and politics has to be able to respond to these issues. So at the center of our thinking, we have the quality of youth's lives, from social pressure, from disinformation, and from incitement to hate, and dynamics of dependence. And Mr. Musk, for example, tweeted that is calling on the states trying to change the polls of the German people just the night before the vote, when the German citizens are turning out to vote. And he tries via his comments on AfD. This is not a question of bureaucracy. These are rules. And this is really what we need to focus on. We must continue to work on this, considering the fact that part of this whole family, this whole thinking process is that it's ban to ban, but freedom, liberty means rules, and there are rules that have to be enforced. At 16 years of age, a person votes. At 13, they are still a kid, and mental health is front and center for whatever issue. We have believed in science. We believed in science for COVID. The no-vax people are on the other side. We believe in climate change. As the scientists tell us, it exists. We must believe in our doctors, in our psychiatrists and our psychologists when they state that we have to sound the alarm for young people, but also those who are young in a different way. We need to find a way to limit and to change the world to be more realistic live more in the real world and less in the digital world. Thank you.
Sì, allora, adesso c'è...
Now we have the next panel. Sabrina Rep. Sabine, I believe you will be the moderator for this next panel, if I'm not mistaken. Strategy for youth, building resilient...
Creare una società resiliente.
Building resilient societies. I will hand over the moderation of this next debate.
So if you would like to drink something, over there are some drinks, and maybe then we can start in a minute. Good idea. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Everyone, please sit down so that we can start the second round. Okay. So please take your seat. It is not that easy, but before I became a member of the European Parliament, I worked also in political education, so I can be very loud. Please take your seat. Sometimes it's also in the European Parliament, like in a school class or in a kindergarten, so you have to take care of everyone. And yes, thank you very much, and thank you very much for being here and share your thoughts. I think it is very important that we talk about not about young people. It is important to talk about with young people. This is why I would like to very welcome our special guests, the students from Murcia. Very warm welcome to you as well. So I think you prepared some statements, right? So maybe at the beginning for the Q&A session, you can share your statement with us. And I have really great guests next to me. My name is Sabrina, and I'm working on Erasmus Plus and on the European Youth Strategy. So for me personally, it is very important also as the second youngest member of the European Parliament that we are doing politics not about young people. It is very important that we have a participation of young people here in our policy-making processes. As the panel before said, we are facing many challenges, but something that is really positive is that we are living in a democracy. And in a democracy, we have the chance to change something because we are the future generation. So it is about us that we make the change. And this is why I'm very happy to share this panel now with you on how we can build up the resilient society. And as you may know, resilient can mean everything. But I think it is important that we define what it means to us, to have a positive future vision of our future. And this is, I think, our task to build it up. So now, I really warm welcome our speakers. So first, I would welcome Laure. Laure is from the European Youth Forum, and I'm really happy that you are here today to share something about your work and also your view. And we have Mercedes. She's a teacher of the José Planes Murcia. Is it? Okay, okay. My Spanish is not that good, so thank you that I can call you by your first name. And the third one is Mateusz. Mateusz is from the New Left, from Poland, right? Very warm welcome here as well. I think we have a great panel, and maybe some few words from me. So when you are looking now to the European level, we see that one thing that is really important for many young people is that they have some kind of mobility. I would like to start with a very personal history. So I done my studies at the university, and for me there was no chance to participate in an Erasmus Plus program. Why? Because often Erasmus Plus, you need to have a good financial background, also financial support from your parents, because often Erasmus Plus funding covers not all the costs you have, for example, in the member state. And for that, it is very important that all young people have access to the European level, to the European Union, and have access to exchange. Because when our democracy is under pressure, one thing that really helps is exchange with other people from other member states, from other countries, from other realities. And when we are talking about a resilient society, it is very important to build up an inclusive society so that everybody has access and chances to create their lives, to be an active part in our society, to become an active part of our society. And these, from our political perspective, we need to build up the basis for that. You have the freedom for exchange, for traveling, for exchange, but from a European level, from the European Parliament, we need to build up the basis so that everyone has the chance to be part of it. And our first speaker, Laure, is working on how we can share especially young perspectives here at the European level, but also it is very important, and this is why our panel is very diverse, to bring it also to a local level. It is important that things that we are discussing here in the European Parliament and on a European level also is connected with the perspectives of people on a local level. And this is why I'm really happy that you are here and that you can share first some things, and after that Mercedes has the chance to say some 5 to 7 minutes, some words, and also after that Mateusz will join our conversation. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for being interested and to be allies for strong youth perspectives on a European level. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, so I am Laura, I'm a board member of the European Youth Forum, and for those of you who don't know what the European Youth Forum is, we are a youth organization and we represent 40 million young Europeans through our more than 100 member organizations. We have national youth councils from almost every country in the Council of Europe as member organizations. We have the Scouts as member organizations. We have the Roma Youth Organization as member organization. So we have a very diverse membership, which makes our organization also very beautiful and which ensures that we can represent the voice of young people as best as possible. So when we look at the question of how we build resilient societies, I think there are a lot of answers to that question, but I will focus on 2 things that for us are very important. And the first one is that we cannot build a resilient society for young people without the participation of young people that is also meaningful and that has impact. And secondly, we cannot build resilient societies if the European Union, but all governments, don't give space, physical space, to young people to develop, to contribute, and to just be young. So how do we get to space and how do we get to participation of young people that is meaningful? Today, on paper, on the EU level, we have a very rich ecosystem of youth participation mechanisms. We have the EU Youth Dialogue, we have the youth policy dialogues with commissioners, we have the EU Youth Check, we have the Youth Advisory Board of the President, and we have the Youth Stakeholders Platform. So those are quite a lot of mechanisms. And they are very positive developments, on the one hand, because 5 years ago we didn't have these mechanisms. So they show political will that the EU wants to involve young people in decision-making processes. But they are not perfect, because while we have these spaces to participate, young people rarely see their input translated into actual legislation. They see that a very important step is missing, and that is the step of influence and impact. And we know that engagement without impact causes frustration. And in this political landscape, we don't want to cause frustration. We want young people to feel engaged and empowered. So for us, the question is not just how do we engage youth, it is also about how do we make youth engagement matter. And therefore, for this, we need 3 things. We need clarity on how youth participation links to actual decision-making and policy-making. We need accountability on how institutions follow up after these conversations. And we also need stability so that all these processes survive beyond one political cycle or beyond the enthusiasm of one commissioner. So when we then look at all these different mechanisms, the youth check, the youth test, really looks at what is the impact of decisions, of legislation on young people's lives. So it is an impact assessment tool. But you cannot assess the impact of legislations on young people's lives in a meaningful way if you don't apply this test to every legislation that is important to young people. So therefore, this youth test cannot just be, that this is something I want to do, I feel like it. No, it has to be something that is systematically applied by all those taking the decisions. And it is something that also has to be part of legislation. Then you have the EU Youth Dialogue, and the EU Youth Dialogue is the largest participatory mechanism for young people in the European Union, but also across the entire globe. It brings together the voices of tens of thousands of young people together in a very structured way, and it puts young people with policymakers together in one room to think together and co-create together solutions on how to improve young people's lives. So it's quite a beautiful process, but again, when we have recommendations then, they need to be adopted, they need to be followed up in a systematic way. So this is also very important. Then someone already mentioned the policy dialogues that are held with every year between every commissioner and every young person. And again, this is a super valuable process. It offers direct conversation between young people and commissioners. So there are some very good examples of these policy dialogues where young people and young participants were selected transparently, where youth organizations were involved, where there was continuity and follow-up. Now, as I said, we have a couple of very good examples. We also have some less good examples. So, as I mentioned, a dialogue without follow-up doesn't have impact. So these policy dialogues, they will happen every year with every commissioner, and therefore it's crucial that every commissioner doesn't just want to say that they talk to young people, but that they follow up, that they ensure that the people they have in the room, that they can represent more young people than just themselves, and that what young people say is also translated into changes, into policy changes, and into legislation. And then there is this Youth Advisory Board. The president, Ursula von der Leyen, she met with the Youth Advisory Board last week, and she met with representatives of national youth councils and also non-EU countries, so the candidate countries. And we see the Youth Advisory Board really as a bridge that connects all the processes of youth engagement on the EU level, and that carries the youth priorities directly to the highest level of political leadership. And that ensures that outcomes from consultations with young people don't get lost between all the different structures that there are. So I think the message is quite clear that participation without impact is not really going to change anything and is not going to build resilient societies. Moving then to my point about giving young people space to engage, to be young and to participate. Two things. First of all, we see a tendency that a lot of youth panels, youth boards are created, which need to have impact. But we can also not forget that these are structures made by policymakers, which are often not young people. Sometimes they are, which is very positive, but not always. So it is very important to also engage with young people who organize themselves in youth organizations, because there they focus on the priorities that they think are important, and they create the structures that work for them. So while we have all these structures, we cannot forget that sometimes you also just need to go to young people themselves and let them self-organize and engage them and engage young people in youth organizations and self-organized young people in these conversations. And then my very last point, you already mentioned it, Erasmus Plus and the European Solidarity Corps. Those are youth programs that the EU is carrying out for young people. And they are one of the most successful programs of the European Union, where if we want to beat polarization, if we want to increase social cohesion, if we want to bring young people together in offline spaces as well, it is incredibly crucial to keep investing in them. to ensure that they're inclusive so that every young person can participate, to ensure that there is enough budget, to also ensure that there is a clear focus on youth and a dedicated earmarked budget for youth and for young people, and to ensure that the priorities of these programs give space to volunteering, solidarity, active citizenship, participation of young people, etc. So I will end there. I think the message is clear. Participation without impact doesn't really mean anything. Youth organizations need to be protected and empowered as well. And young people need to be given space, and Erasmus Plus and the European Solidarity Corps are very beautiful examples of that need to be strengthened even more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the message was very clear. Also to have space to have real participation, not some kind of, dialogue, and this doesn't mean participation. This is, I think, really, really important, and to have some kind of response, right? So you can say everything, but you need a response. You need an answer to that. I think this is also for us as politicians very important, that we not only meet young people and say then hello and goodbye, to really have participation and to really hear from you what is your perspective on different issues. So thank you very much. I will now hand over to Mercedes. Thank you very much for being here and bringing incredible students here as well. So thank you very much. I think you will now share especially your perspective, also the perspective maybe of your students. And you have the floor. I'm really, really happy that you are here, and also the students. Thank you.
Buenas tardes y muchas gracias.
Good afternoon, and thank you to everybody in Bancoros that meant that we could be here today. And thank you to my colleagues from the Jose Planes School. Let's see if I can get through all of this in the sufficient time. So I'm talking a bit about what's happening in the school. My name is Mercedes Escave. I have been a teacher for almost 4 decades. I worked in infant, primary, higher education, university. So I think I have a quite comprehensive view of the education system in my country. I am going to start by looking at the student focus. We are there for the students, of course, because we are concerned about the students. We want them to have a healthy situation for their education, and we think there are threats, and we want to speak out about that. It's very important that we defend the students. Teachers are the ones that are very close to students, and I think it's important for us to be responsible, to manage these situations, to be able to offer tools that are useful for managing what society offers them, but also against the threats in society as well. There is a current problem, which is an incoherence in the legislation or a social hypocrisy, because we see that the interests of the minors are not really being recognized at the different levels. Economic interests are being put ahead of the interests of our children that really do endanger them. And there are also, at the same time, laws being created to protect them. So there are products that are dangerous to them, which are legal, and at the same time, you're trying to protect young people. This seems absolutely terrible to me, and it is social washing, and it should be banned. Our students face a whole series of problems, and a lot of them are because of the use of new technologies. Now, these can be very useful for their lives, their studies, but they really do endanger them as well. Online games that can lead to gambling addiction, and that's a project that we have been running in particular, their attention span has significantly shrunk, just endless scrolling. There's a very quick, short information. They barely have any time to process it. And so they are really losing their attention span. And this is reflected in the classrooms. This is not an isolated bubble. We see a reflection of society. And there is another key problem, which is the reference points for young people. It was either teachers or parents or older siblings, and that reference point has really been lost. These role models. Now influencers are role models for our children, and this is something which is dangerous. Children will imitate what they see, how they dance, the music, what they eat, and these might not be the best possible people to be role models. And we as teachers are facing a serious problem. A lot of teachers are leaving the profession because they simply don't feel that they can continue doing that. It's not sustainable for them. And this is a lot to do with the atmosphere in the classroom, which has become worse. There are more and more discipline problems. There are issues with the diversity of students, which we simply can't manage. There might be students who have a language problem, who have come late into the education system. Others may be attention deficit disorder, maybe dyslexia or other issues. And there are a number of issues that we're not trained to deal with. We don't have the tools to manage that. We see in the education systems there aren't enough support people when it comes to mental health to provide that assistance. Maybe for 1,000 students, there might be one counsellor for the students, maybe two. And this is very dangerous because there are a series of problems that we simply can't manage. We are seeing a social gap which is forming in terms of those who have access to psychological help. There are children and young people who might be getting private medical help in that sense, but there are a lot who aren't getting that help because there isn't the space, there isn't the funds for them. And when it comes to the family, it used to be a bridge between the school and the student, and now it's more like a wall. There's more aggression there. A lot of the social problems, lack of time, it's seen in the relationship between the parents and the students. Sufficient time isn't really spent with them, quality time. This means our young people are more insecure, they're more vulnerable because that safety net of their family has disappeared to a certain extent, fortunately not in all cases. There has been a significant increase in aggression within families, children against parents. We've seen a 400% increase in recent years, which really is very concerning. It's very problematic for when a child is in a situation where they might attack their parents. The legislation in Spain has changed depending what party is in government at the time. Unfortunately, none of it has really helped the teaching profession. We've never been included. We haven't been asked what we want and why we want it. So we have seen successive education laws that aren't really based on consensus. They haven't properly evaluated the impact that these laws have had to see if it's good or bad. And so we are working almost as if it was the 18th century still when it comes to our education. And the reality is, of course, very different now. We have a lot of new technologies, and some of this is difficult for us as teachers. We don't have the necessary training and resources to really provide all of that new education that's needed. And to conclude, let me just talk about the project that I've been coordinating for 8 years, perhaps a little ray of hope there at the end. This is something that came out of a social reality in our region, a very complicated situation. We have 3 times more betting shops than in the rest of Spain. And so it means we have a lot more gambling addiction amongst young people because it's been very much more available and present in their lives. So we created a group of students. So we have secondary students, those doing their baccalaureate, all working together, doing what we could within the time frame available, using free periods, lunch breaks. So first of all, there was a very detailed analysis of the situation. We spoke to politicians, people related to different mental health bodies, those who dealt with gambling, looked at a lot of the literature to gain all of the necessary information to try and create some materials that were then disseminated. We've been to different educational centres, given talks. I think around 2,000 students we've managed to reach. And our students have become agents of social change. We've seen some change at municipal level, at least. But I think at a social level, we've certainly raised visibility of this issue of gambling addiction and protecting our young people and children from this system. Finally, I would just like to call on all of you, all of the adults, young people, parents. If we can give our young people what they need, they will become healthy and responsible adults. We need to be very clear what the limits are, but we also need to show young people what their opportunities are as well. We need to really focus on health. Children are the best that we have. They are our present and our future. So I would ask you to allow them to grow up free and healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'm looking in very proud faces. So I think your students are as well. I'm very happy that you spoke on behalf of them. And also they will have the chance later to say some words. I think maybe I can share another story because it is very important in your role as a teacher. So we asked also for this panel for another teacher. And he couldn't come because the ministry in my region forbid it. So that he can attend this meeting to share some perspectives and words. And it is very important that we build up a resilient society where teachers have the space to share the challenges they face, because it is very important as well for us as politicians, because you are very close to your students, to young people, that you have the room to share your work, your perspectives, and also the danger that many people are facing, because only then, also here in the European Parliament, we can know about that. But we see there is also a lot of pressure also from some politicians that they really want to forbid that. Also you as a teacher have the room, have the space for your thinking. And thank you very much for being here today and for your engagement for young people and as well for a resilient society. And now I would like to hand over to Mateusz from Poland, from the New Left, and I'm really happy that you are here. We talked before a little bit about youth organizations, and maybe also I'm very happy that you're here and can express some few words about yourself, about your youth organization and your work. You have the floor.
Tak. Szanowni Państwo, dziękuję przede wszystkim.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, can I say thank you very much for having me. I'm very glad that these important subjects are being discussed at this very high level. And the fact is also very important that you can see us. I actually represent the generation of 2002, and we actually lived through many crises in our lives, be it the COVID-19 or the housing crisis. Perhaps you may have heard about it. Now there's another crisis. We are entering the times of becoming an adult, and also trying to find work. And we also work for free, because this is what happens when you find a place where you have unpaid internship or traineeship. And this is what happens exactly because many young people are suffering from mental health disorders. And there is no answer from the general world. We need to look into the cyberspace in more detail. We did speak about it here. But it needs to be said that the well-being of young people is something that is TikTok or other platforms are responsible for, also in a negative sense. And sometimes we hear that the world is sad and there are no perspectives, and those algorithms are bombarding us with this very negative content. This actually contributes to our well-being and the way we feel about ourselves, something that we need to discuss, talk about with a psychiatrist. I actually organized some conferences on youth mental health back in Poland, and we looked into the psychiatrist's branch and how difficult it is to get help from a psychiatrist. Sometimes it would probably take 2 or 3 years waiting in line. Some people are missing the feeling of agency, that they are actually being heard. I come from a small city, a town of Grudziądz, and it's not far away from the city of Toruń, the city of Copernicus, by the way. Now, the town of Grudziądz perhaps did not give me a chance in life, but Toruń was different. This city offered future for young people. They could not say that there is not much going on in these parts. And this is exactly the way we should act. That is to create young people's council participation on the local, regional, or national level. Some of the events are aiming at the possibility for the young people to be heard, exactly. Another matter we need to deal with is the housing problem, and I'm very happy that the city I come from is doing something about it. Some of the apartments are now being built with the view of being then rented to young people. this could be a good case in point for some other local governments in Poland. In the city of Włocławek, we also find a project, apartments for those who've graduated from a local technical university and would like to remain in the city and live there. So they can feel that they are being heard, that they have some future in this city, and they'll then raise a family. Now, I'd like to move from the local level, if I may, to the topic of a youth organization acting nationwide. Now, I happen to be the co-chairman of the new Polish Left. This is a youth organization in our party, and I would like to help others being active in politics. Some people say that youth politicians are those, and probably in the not so positive sense, people who are just there to make coffee for the serious politicians, older politicians, politicians with experience out there. But the feeling of agency is something that we want to have and would like to demand from the older echelons of politicians, also those who are currently in power, that we need to be heard. There are some projects that we are now implementing. They are aimed at those older politicians, and we make sure that they actually implement those projects themselves. These are draft laws. We've come up with a report on housing situation, and also another important matter, that is the ban on unpaid internships and traineeships, and also a bill that would introduce a ban on any kind of internship, to make sure that any work performed by a young person to be remunerated in a correct manner. And we've been successful, both locally in some of the cities. We are represented as a young left in the cities of Kraków, for example, where the ban on the unpaid internship and traineeship has been successfully introduced. But there is also a dialogue afoot with the ministry, and we're working on a bill of a new law on the ban on the unpaid traineeship. So we are working on this feeling of agency, as we are not the only NGO that is behind this cause. But as a coalition, we felt that we are being heard by the government, and our demands, our requests are put into practice. And beyond that, I want to say that people we work with are excellent. There is a plethora of young organizations that deal with mental health, housing, you name it, or people who are inform others about their labor rights. We also tutor those younger generation in ways of entering the labor market. I actually was responsible for one of them in the city of Grudziądz. Older generation of politicians need to make sure that younger people have the necessary knowledge and access to knowledge, that is how to enter the adulthood years. Cyber world is just one thing. Those algorithms, disinformation. And there are different issues as well. That is the ways we are entering the adulthood. Some people feel that it's just so much ahead of us. I experienced it myself, that I didn't know what to do when I was signing off on the my apartment's contract, or my first contract for work. I wanted to know, and I was in the dark whether such and such behavior of my boss constitutes mobbing behavior, and are people actually allowed to make phone calls to you in the wee hours of the day? Now, this is what we realize, and sometimes this realization comes too late. And finally, I'd like to touch upon yet more a different matter. The actual functioning of the youth organization is one side of things, and there are people who can be able to take care of themselves. There are many young politicians that make sure that there is a visibility for our organization, and also make sure that we are heard in the party in general. But on the other hand, there is this attitude of older generation of politicians towards us. We need to make sure that whenever we choose this path down the road, which is political and not NGO anymore, then the cooperation with the politicians is not so important. But what is important is that the older politicians have some respect for us and are interested of what we have to say and what kind of projects we would like to carry out. My party, the left in Poland, is actually active in this department. And I'd like to say thank you very much to someone who actually saw the potential in me when I was 18 years old, and I was defending the cause of climate issues back in Grudziądz, and this is Ms. Wielgus, MEP, whom I'd like to thank. So there are people out there who will probably see some potential in you and will not treat you as simple pushovers, and they will be your voice on variety of levels, starting from the local and ending here in the European Parliament. I'm very happy and I can be part of it.
Thank you very much for sharing your perspective on how we can engage young people also on a local level, also with topics that matters for that young people, and also to share your view that you can only be strong when you have strong allies and supporters. Maybe not every time in your party, but also in your school class, in your organization. I think it is very important that we build up organizations and to organize ourselves to really fight for our topics and to really raise the voice. That is the most important for us. And now I will hand over to our students. I don't know if you have an order who's going to start, but maybe you can present your short statement if you want. Sure. Okay, so who wants to start? Okay, no, first the students, and after that.
Buenas. Good afternoon. I am from the Jose Planes, and we're so proud to be here with our teacher. Now, I think what is important with this project, and it's important to speak about it and to raise our concerns. This project means that we can be better informed about the world that we live in, and we can see what we could do to exist in a world that is changing, as Mercedes said so well, and to be a part of a project by meeting other people and teamwork, empathy, being there, being involved, raising your voice. It also means that you can really expand your horizons. And this is, for example, an excellent experience being here and speaking to all of you, because I am still a child and I'm still ashamed at times. But these types of activities and projects means that we can have a chance to have a future, to speak up and to express what we're really concerned about. Now, I think that the most important thing really is for young people to be listened. And we see that if a young person raises a problem, raises an issue, usually then that is something that is much more with much more emotion, and it hits home with young people more easily. Now, as young people, we wanted to have a chance to speak up about how we feel about the online and offline world. I'm sure that my classmates are going to be able to give you their direct experience, what they have experienced with technology. Young people, today we live between FOMO and slide. We have the feeling that if we are not at a party or at an event, we are missing out on our life. And if, for example, a friend doesn't give you a like, then we think there's something wrong with us.
El robo de información.
Information on social media is really concerning for us. There's lots of information published, and it's hard for us to make up our own minds. Now, when we publish something on internet, we lose control of that, and then it's out there forever, and anyone can use it, and even without our consent. For this reason, we have to be extremely careful when we share any personal data so that we don't give it to everyone. On internet, you can only see one aspect of life, and it seems unreal, it seems perfect, but we believe it, and we measure ourselves against that, and then that lowers our self-esteem.
We are always online, yet growing more distance from real life. Digital habits can make us feel isolated and pull us away from what truly matters. So we shouldn't let the virtual world take over our lives.
Las noticias falsas Fake news spreads very quickly on social media, where we, as young people, we are always plugged in, and that has a negative impact.
El ciberacoso es un problema grave que afecta.
Many are impacted on social media. It's hard to promote empathy and to have a strong community around us.
Como hemos estado hablando antes de la.
Now, you've been talking about social media, and social media is extremely useful as a tool, but it is designed to steal our time. Misuse can mean that we become addicted and takes time away from what is really important in our lives: education, our families, our friends. And it also, we know that it's something that is taking up our time. It is time consuming, and it's something that will always be there.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you very much. And now I think your teacher is very proud. So thank you very much for taking an active part here also in this audience. I don't know, everyone spoke? No, not everyone. Do you want? Okay, okay, it's fine. Okay, so it's fine. Now I will open the discussion. So please, when you have a question, raise your hand and then, okay. Okay, so many people. Maybe we can start with Joanna, and after that we are moving to the end of the room, and then we can go steps forward.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting for me, and I have a question about social media. We are looking for Australia. They just banned the ban for social media. What do you think about it? And I'm asking because maybe we have to do something in Europe, because like we heard before, we have a lot of problem in social media. Of course, we know about it, but I would like to know your opinion, the teacher opinion there, and the people from youth organization. What do you think about it? This is useful or not?
So I will move to the back, yes. Please, you sit next to each other, maybe you can, okay.
I actually have a couple of questions. So Sausen, I'm Policy and Communication Officer at Diaspora Vote, an NGO willing to empower racialized youth in EU decision-making processes. And I actually wanted to add up to the point made by Laura on meaningful participation by speaking of meaningful inclusion. I believe that most EU youth mechanisms are actually quite not well known because they happen to not be open, nor transparent, nor accessible. And they especially miss out on involving young people with less opportunities and, in our views, racialized people. For example, with the youth policy dialogue, we saw that most of them were just not accessible via an open call. We also saw that for the youth advisory board. That was actually a setup that was done in the summer, in the middle of summer, over 2 weeks' time only, and that if gender balance and regional balance were respected when it came to actually involving racialized youth, we didn't see it. So yeah, I think in terms of what is your opinion to begin with at the European Youth Forum on that? Are you actually working on trying to implement more anti-discrimination and anti-racism efforts within both your advocacy, but also in the way you engage with those mechanisms? And how can we expect all youth to be meaningfully involved? And my second question would be to MEP Sabrina Rep. Since you're the rapporteur on the next EU strategy, if I understood well, how would you be willing to push for more intersectionality and also more anti-racism within the next youth strategy? Because one thing we've seen is also that most of the time there's a lot of fragmentation between inclusion policy in the EU, especially when it comes to youth inclusion, and also anti-racism fight in general. So that would be my question.
Okay, thank you very much. So your neighbor.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Cornelia Kish. I'm from Culture Action Europe, which is a European cultural network based in Brussels and having members in over 35 countries. I'm actually, as you see, I'm actually coming from a topic that hasn't been mentioned so far. And I'm hoping that maybe we can contribute a little bit to the solution. Because there is a huge growing body of evidence now that engagement in cultural activities is actually a health behavior. similar to physical activity or having nutritious food or going out to nature. Actually, engaging in cultural activities is a health behavior. And it is actually a very good way to have alternatives to screen time. Imagine, for example, in a group setting, a group drumming session, or imagine it in an improvisative theater or an improvisative dance class within schools, maybe after school hours. But actually, all kinds of extracurricular activities stop usually at the age of 12, and there is no other. So there is nothing to do other than being on your screen phone. So actually large-scale programs are needed that are financed, go into schools, and then maybe take people over to the cultural venues as well to continue there. And actually in Australia, they also have measured what is the amount, what is the dose you need. Actually 2 hours per week of cultural activities are linked to better mental health and better mental well-being. So actually this could be one of the solutions that contribute on a large scale. And I really hope that the youth strategy will also reflect this as well. And also within the youth strategy, there will be a youth mental health strategy as well that kind of deals with this issue on a large scale. And actually, one thing that I'd like to note after the first panel, we talked so much about addiction and how what it affects us, but it is actually possible to design social media in a non-addictive way. And we are just actually not, we just accept that this is how it is. We shouldn't. It's also addictive to grown-ups. So why are we just tackling with all these special features within social media? We should actually call for a social media that is not addictive in a way because it's proven to be addictive. Thank you.
And then also maybe social media social, yeah. Okay, so maybe you can again raise your hand. Who wants to take the floor, because we have not that. Okay, so I see 3 other hands. So maybe then we can ask in the first round, and after that you will have the floor. Okay, so does someone wants to start? Maybe Mercedes, you can start, and we can do a short round.
Ahora, ¿no? Bueno, yo
Well, talking about the Australia ban, of course, I think, yes, we should limit the use of social media, but I think first and foremost, we should work with families. I believe that there is a serious problem with families when it comes to the controls on the use of cell phones. And we know that there are young people, young parents also that have a problem with screens, so it's hard for them to limit their children when they are often with their cell phone in hand. But I think that we should do it, and we have to do it. And I think it's urgent. Not only do we have to do it, but we have to do it urgently. And I think we have to work with families. If we don't do that, it'll be useless, because even now, young people have much power, too much power over their parents, and they can get the permission that they need to use it. It's sad, but it's true, and I am sure of it.
Okay, thank you very much. Laura?
Thank you for the questions. First of all, on the social media ban, well, the European Youth Forum believes that a blanket social media ban is not going to solve any issues. It's a one-size-fits-all solution, but there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all solution. So young people's offline and online world really goes in each other. It's very much tangled. So we need to preserve the benefits of social media, but also address the harmful elements. And yes, there needs to be a balance. Restrictions need to happen. Media literacy for young people, but also for adults, teachers, parents, youth workers, needs to be improved. but a blanket social media ban is not going to help that. And then on the question on racialized young people and minorities, etc. So first of all, the Youth Forum is very committed to including as many minority voices as possible in our advocacy and just in our structures. We have quite some member organizations who represent minority groups, and we have recently also established an anti-racism expert group that really works. Well, we had a first meeting last week, so it's in the early stages. But it really just looks at how do we specifically tackle anti-racism and how do we bring this in our advocacy, in our governance structures, in our membership. So how do we as a platform become more actively anti-racist? And this is something that should have happened from the moment we started existing. So I'm also I'm very sad that it's only happening now, but I'm also happy that it is happening now, at least.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I will hand over to Mateusz.
Tak, no ja przede wszystkim zaczynając od początku, czyli właśnie od tego...
Now, starting from the top, that is this smartphone ban, I would probably be leaning towards being against. Because we did have this debate on the idea of young people, actually children up to the age of 16 using the social media. It is a horrible sight that I can see that a 2-year-old sitting in a trolley holding a smartphone in his hand and scrolling one roll of film after another. And I actually looked into the matter, and we organized a round table on the subject, and perhaps the idea would be to ban young people from using social media. It's not a particularly good idea because young people don't necessarily watch some short films, but also they use it to chat with their friends at a long distance. I used to talk to someone who was placed 100 kilometers from where I was located. There are some messenger groups that allow for exchange of class notes, for that matter. Now, it's probably about hardware, because hardware can make it safe, and also cyber hygiene is also a good idea. I'm not entirely in favor of the ban, but it's also sick when a young child is actually looking at the screen for 8 or 10 hours a day, and it's not particularly contributing to our personal development either. Now, on culture, I gave it some thought how to encourage young people for them to stay in smaller cities and towns. And culture is an answer, or is the answer. It's about the events, some concerts, and a good play at the local theater, some extracurricular activities. This may encourage young people to say that there is something going on in our town and would like to stay in this town for longer. This is important for young people to feel better about staying in their towns where they were born in.
Something I will really shortly answer these questions. From my point of view, the European Youth Strategy is, so we are doing the report of the implementation of the actual European Youth Strategy. And for that, it is very important to have some kind of evaluation and see how, for example, youth mainstreaming is really pushed. Because what we see is that often when it comes to questions of youth check or when it comes to question of education, only then youth perspectives are important. So it is very important to have some kind of intersectional perspective on, in general, young people, like youth mainstreaming. I think this would be very, very important. And the other thing, because you asked about racism and strategies against racism or anti-discrimination. So from my point of view, it is very important also to really have space to find space for those who are in a minority, so that they also have the chance to express their views. We discussed many things about social media now. But this is, I think, one big challenge young people have, but there are many others as well. And from my point of view, also as politicians, we need to be aware that not only we are pushing one discussion and the other topics are left behind. And for that, it is very important what you've said, to have an inclusive society. It is very important to have no discrimination, to have space that everyone has the chance to represent their views. And also, as us, as politicians, I see my task that we are listening to different perspectives and bringing these together and to manage it also when we are talking about the implementation of the youth strategy, and also when we are talking about youth mainstreaming. It really means also when we are talking about Erasmus Plus or European Solidarity Corps, these are not only the fundings that support young people, it's also about cohesion funds, for example. And the European Youth Strategy should be the basis, and from this basis also we need to look up to the member state and to the local level to really force this strategy, because what I often hear is that, for example, there are some local youth strategies, but they are not really connected, for example, with the European Youth Strategy. Why? So the European Youth Strategy should really be the basis, and so that the member states are really close connected to that strategy, and also to, because you mentioned cultural health, also to how we can propose activities, how we can build up structures that are attractive also for young people. When I looked into the past, for me it was, I'm from a rural area in the northeastern part of Germany, so the only thing I can do, I was supposed to do during my youth was going to church, to the football club, or and these were the only options. So we really need to propose activities so that young people can be part of that. So now our commissioner, Glenn Micallef, is attending also that meeting, but I think for a short round we will have maybe some 10 minutes left. Okay, so maybe so all hands up that want to say something. Okay, now I see 4 hands, and then we will have a conclusion. So you have then again also the floor. Okay, so we can start with you.
Thank you very much. My question would be addressed to Mr. I hope I say it okay, Orzechowski. Regarding the internships, you've talked about legislation, about making them paid, but so far I've done 2 internships back, I'm from Barcelona, and the 2 internships I did was for the government, and they were both unpaid. So how can we make this legislation feasible across all member states? Thank you.
Okay, so your neighbor, yes.
Muchas gracias. Voy a...
Thank you very much. My name is Adrian Martin Sanchez. I represent human rights defense as an advocacy officer. I think the role of teachers is important for a dignified society. As a young person, someone in higher education, it's not just for younger students, but also for public universities in Spain. the lack of funding for the autonomous communities and the education system. There's dangers of AI. All of this is affecting social access and opportunities amongst young people. I would like to know how the European Parliament and national authorities will help the teaching profession and strengthen public education to do the best for our young people when it comes to the digital transformation. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias. So now I will hand over. Oh, so you also have okay, then you, and then after. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you need to.
Okay, sorry. Thank you very much for all your words, and especially to Mercedes Escabi, because even though I am an Erasmus student, I am from Almería, your neighbor city in Spain, so I totally agree with all the things that you said. And my question is to the whole table. Keeping in mind the complex social context in Europe these days, where populism is in the rise, do you think that the right of vote for the 16-year-old people is an advantage or a weapon, or maybe even a double-edged weapon? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My question is, I'm first of all happy to see so many teenagers in this room, but the problem I face is that these teenagers can't use their voice in the S&D at European level. We of course have for youth the YES, which I'm very fortunate about, but teenagers can't use their voice in the S&D of European level. And my question is to you, what are you going to do to give these teenagers a voice in the S&D? Because like Ms. Letouche said, young people have a right to be heard. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Merzat. I'm the International Secretary of the Young Socialists, the youth party, the youth wing of the Labour Party of the Netherlands. So today we talked a lot about social media, so about privacy regulations, about algorithms, and I think that's very important. I want to emphasize that. But at the same time, we also have to acknowledge that a lot of young people in Europe don't have access to digital devices. And we saw this, for example, during the corona epidemic, that children of rich parents did have a laptop and could work, and children of poor parents didn't have that. So my question is then, how do you think that we can ensure that all the children and young people in Europe has access to those digital devices? And mostly also because, for example, in the Netherlands, we also see a lot of cuts on education. So it has to come, for example, out of the EU to make a strategy to ensure that all the young people have access.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the last round of the discussion from the audience. Now I will hand over to our speakers again. I don't know, Mateusz, maybe now you can start and Mercedes can close it. So, you have the floor.
Tak, dziękuję bardzo za pytania, zwłaszcza za...
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you very much for the questions, and particularly for those unpaid traineeships. And let me just reverse this question. What can be done to make sure that this is the case in the entire European Union? A directive to this effect is now afoot. Now, Poland decided to introduce their own regulations much quicker. My party is actually responsible for Ministry of Labour. So there an opportunity arose that we could actually do it much quicker with a benefit to the young people, and they are now remunerated to the level commensurate. Now, what can be done on the national level, on the member state level? First off, we need to start a debate, and you can always make a reference to this directive. This is a mouthful when it comes to the actual title of this directive, but you can easily find it on the internet. What can be done nationwide is for the older politicians to see that this is actually an issue, something that the younger generation cares about. And we can also look into the actual cases of people who have gone through unpaid traineeships and practices and what they've gone through. And, for example, they have a choice between actual work or traineeship, which isn't paid. Sometimes in the morning, they go to, they join a traineeship, and in the evening, they have a second work, some activities that can be performed later in the day and in the evening. These are the issues which are close to the heart of the European Union as well, but some of the regulations need to be much stricter. Obviously, we all know that directive can be implemented in a variety of ways, reflecting the local specificity, perhaps not in the way that we in the left would like to see it happening. Now, S&D and the engagement with the younger generation. Now there is this youth organization which is functioning along the Socialists and Democrats group here in the European Parliament. Some of the events are interesting events are organized here in the European Parliament, and this is where I'd like to leave it on that, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura.
I will answer to the question on lowering the voting age. I think we definitely need to lower the voting age. When you're 16, you're usually still at school, you usually still live with your parents. You have a bit more stability than when you're 18, 21, you try to see if you can move out, or you're less with your parents, you try to start building a life of your own. And the stability is very needed because it gives you more easily access to citizenship education, support on how to register if you need to register, on where to vote, on how to vote, etc. And then also, if we want to take young people's voices seriously, the best way is to just make sure that they can decide. So if politicians really want to show their commitment to involving young people's and youth voices in decision-making processes, lower the voting age. And we also see that lowering the voting age increases the trust of young people in European politics, in national politics, regional and local politics. So for all these reasons and many more, I definitely believe that we should lower the voting age.
Thank you very much. And now, Mercedes.
Voy a contestarle.
I will answer. I'm afraid I didn't get your name, but I think that the education policies at an international, European, national, regional level, I think the policies need to be more ambitious. Public education is for everybody, but around half of the centres are private and half are public at the moment. Obviously, public is open to everybody. And it is a problem because some of the resources are going to places where the parents could probably afford to pay for them. So I think we need to really focus on the schools as a starting point to see what they need, how it can be done, why it should be done. Because if it doesn't have that as a starting point, if it's something which is imposed, it's not necessarily going to be realistic. I think it is important to have innovation for education. I think it's important to have realistic classroom spaces. You don't want to have over 30 children crammed into a classroom, for example. And as I said, there's a diversity of different different problems that are hard for a teacher to manage in one group. Less bureaucracy would be important as well. There's so much paperwork to fill in that we barely have time to prepare our lessons. I might have 2 hours free for marking, for preparing my lessons. But if I also have to fill in 15 forms, then you end up putting off what is most important. And I think we really need to do what we can to strengthen public education, strengthen training, the resources we have, the schools, to help with the mental health problems that are arising as well, to focus on this diversity of issues that exists in society as well. Thank you. Thank you very much for the questions.
Okay, so this is my first time. I cannot manage to be always on time because I'm German. So maybe I have 1 minute, Glenn, before I hand over to you to have some concluding remarks on this panel. I hope it's okay. So thank you very much for this conversation. I think it is very important when we are starting our talking about European Youth Strategy, about Erasmus Plus, about funding. It is very important that we this is the first step on these conversations, on these discussions. And what we see is that it is very important that we are strengthening our local level, that many people who are interested in European issues, it starts at a local level. It doesn't start here in Brussels or in Strasbourg, it starts at a local level. And this is why we really need to bring up these perspectives here in the European Parliament, but as well to the Commission. Because what we've heard is that it is really, really important to have a response, to have a real participation in our policy-making processes. And now I will go to the beginning, what I've mentioned. It is important in all youth policy, but in all other topics we are discussing here in the European Parliament, that we have some kind of youth mainstreaming. This means on every topic we should have a youth perspective. And talk about what is the effect of these, for example, law that we made to young people. And for that, really much thank you for your attendance, really much thank you that you are here today and to have a good work. And I know that we, from a European level with the Commission, have a great work with Glenn Mikalev, our Commissioner for Intergenerational Fairness, Youth, Culture and Sport. Thank you very much for being here today. And also this is really great that you are here. And this shows us that for you it is very important to have young voices. So thank you very much. And now I will hand over for the closing remarks. Thank you all. So Glenn, you have the floor.
My pupils have got a message for all of you. They want to grow up healthy and free.
So before I give the floor to our commissioner, who has been introduced by Sabrina already perfectly, I want to add that Glenn Mikalev is very committed to all aspects of his portfolio, and that he is looking for debate, to get in contact with all the different interest groups, and this is a very good experience we made with your work you are doing and how you are doing. Before I invite you to have some remarks on the EU youth politics, there was the question in the room about how did you get in contact with politics? How can we attract young people to involve, to be engaged in in politics, how did your political biography start? Yeah.
And this is a story where I can relate with a lot of what Sabrina was saying just a couple of minutes ago. My activism started at local level. I was, as a young citizen, very much involved in my community, in cultural organizations, but also in sport organizations. As I grew older, in the student movement, I realized that we could be active and mobilize and make our opinions heard on issues that involved us as students in the students' councils and in the students' union, but also on national issues. My journey started basically with activism on topics ranging from the national budget in Malta, the annual national budget, to issues related to civil rights. At the time, there was a national discussion on the introduction of civil rights, certain civil rights, which were in Malta not available at the moment. And practically, as a student movement, we decided to organize. We decided that we wanted to speak up about our pension system, about the introduction of civil rights, about utility bills. And this is how I started my journey into politics. Then, and I was listening, someone was mentioning it in the room, my first real opportunity in formal European politics came through an internship in the European Parliament. So I started my career as an intern in this house, in the European Parliament, in this group, in this political family. So I practically know my success, if you would like it, or my professional career to the experience that I got through these crucial parts of my journey. And I can say that from my internship, I've learned so much. I've learned about how politics is done at European level, about debating and discussing policy issues, trying to find compromises and solutions, but also really important lessons about making connections, building on solid grounds and on solid values. So this is a great formative experience. And I'm very thankful for the group for giving me this opportunity. In the group, it was, I think the group has always been a trailblazer in this area. So it was a paid internship with mentorship opportunities and with experiences of how things are done and how they should be done. So I think the group has been doing, is doing, and is committed to continue doing a good job in this area. And yeah, I really think that this is a wonderful experience. So then, the topic of today's discussion, and again, Sabrina, Hannes, Joanna, Marcos, I think the topic of today's discussion really hits the nail on the head. The first two words of today's theme, empowering youth, are to me fundamental. And just to put things into perspective, and I'll share a little bit what I believe youth empowerment means. To me, youth empowerment is affordable housing, the possibility to have a roof over your head as a student, but also as a young person, without it taking practically or all your income or nearly all your income. Youth empowerment is a good quality job with a decent income that allows you to have a good quality of life. Youth empowerment means inclusion. Youth empowerment means having a good having access to good education, good quality education. And youth empowerment means having a seat at the table, having a real role in the decision-making processes. And I wanted just to start this discussion today by sharing an experience. Probably I see many young people in the room. You've had similar experiences to what I'm about to share with you. I was speaking to a young person, 18 years of age, just 2 or 3 weeks ago from the Netherlands. This is someone who is very interested in contributing ideas on topics from pensions to sustainability, to the way democracies and our democracy is changing and evolving. And he wanted to discuss these ideas with members of parliament. When he was explaining his interest in these topics, one member of parliament said, you're 18 years of age. You're too young. You should be out having fun, enjoying yourself, or chasing your dreams. It's not your place to be in this discussion. Sadly, this is a reality that many young people still face today. Sadly, in our societies, including in the European Union, we have people who are active in the youth movement who are told that they cannot participate. There is in one of our member states a situation where an independently elected youth council is not being recognized by their own government and being taken to court. These are realities that we see across the European Union. So genuine youth empowerment starts with a seat at the table. It starts with initiatives like there are in the country I know best, and that we were discussing a couple of minutes ago, Vote 16, giving young people the chance to have a real voice in who represents them, having young people, giving young people the possibility to be represented in institutions. And these are, I think, the most crucial steps. In the European Union, we're trying to do this systematically, and I try to make it a point that in decisions that we are taking, we involve young people structurally in these discussions. So I'll just give you a little bit, some examples of initiatives that we launched as a European Commission in this respect. And I want to refer immediately to the youth policy dialogues. And this is a process through which members of the executive of the European Union, members of the European Commission, so myself as commissioner and my colleagues in the college, we've committed to have on an annual basis on the areas of our responsibility, so on areas where we are proposing legislation at European level, exchanges with young people. At least one exchange every year with young people from across the European Union. It was an initiative that we started in 2025. Our goal was to have, we are 26 members of college and the president, a dialogue each. And it turned out to be such a positive experience with so many fresh ideas being brought to the table that from 26 we ended up having 40 youth policy dialogues with young people on different policy areas, from agriculture to housing to social policy to sustainability to equality, all the topics that me and my colleagues cover. So this was a fantastic experience, and we will continue to have it every year for the next years of our mandate. Then, we've also introduced, and we've had the first meeting a couple of days ago, a President's Youth Advisory Board. Basically, this is a forum, a space where the President of the European Commission, so President von der Leyen, sits around the table with representatives from every member state, but also from accession and enlargement countries, so countries who aspire to be members of the European Union. And we seek advice, we seek input on various topics. We've just had the first meeting a couple of days ago, and this was on the impact of social media on young people. But I'll come to this on the impact of the digital sphere in a few minutes. But we've also taken it further. So as from 2025, as a European Commission, we've started with something that we call a youth check. What does this youth check mean? So every year we have a number of policy initiatives, laws in the forms of regulations and directives that we put forward to the co-legislature, so to the European Parliament and the European Council, to eventually be implemented in member states. And we decided that it would be apt and opportune to have each and every one of these screened for their impact on youth and on young people. And as a result of the screening, wherever there was an impact which we felt would be significant on youth, we decided to have specific consultations. We decided to have specific impact assessments on these policies. So those are 3 examples. They're not the only examples of tools we have to give voices to young people and the way we design our policies. Other examples include the European Youth Dialogue. So it's a process through which we consult around 18,000 people, 18,000 young people on priorities for young people. We have the EU Youth Stakeholders Group, where we invite organizations, we invite think tanks, we invite educators to join us and help us reflect on priorities for young people. And these are some examples. Now, coming to the second part of today's theme, which is the online and the offline world. And there I see a link between the two. And again, I want to say that for me, youth empowerment also involves a good quality of life. And by this I mean wellness, physical wellness, but also well-being, including mental health. And I see that, and the way I see it, digital tools, they're great tools for young people to be connected with one another, to learn, to communicate and to grow. But they also come with risks. Risks of harmful experiences in the online world. And I'm here referring, for example, to cyberbullying and you know, experiences which could be potentially dangerous. The first thing we need to do when it comes to the online spaces, in my opinion, is to regulate. And we are living in a continent, in a union, where we have put in place strong regulations on digital platforms. We need to implement those regulations. Also regulations that protect young people in online environments, especially minors. But then we also need to complement this with education. We need to complement this with basic digital education through our education systems, because this is part and parcel of our work. I'm right now working on an action plan on cyberbullying, which is why I made specific reference to the issue. So to me, this is one of the important themes of my work. And then if we want to speak about solutions, if we want to speak about well-being, I think we need to also have a discussion on healthy alternatives to screen time. And this is something that we could do through other areas of my portfolio. through improved access to sport, improved access to cultural offers, healthier alternatives to digital tools to promote interaction, communication, and to help us mitigate the challenges that we face when it comes to mental well-being. Here, I really call on the support, and I really call on allies in other institutions to be really voices championing these causes. I know that for the Parliament these are really important issues. Hannes, Sabrina, Marco, and other colleagues in the group are very vocal in this respect. And we need the group to be more vocal on these issues when it comes, for example, to outlining priorities for the Commission work program for the next MFF. We need the group to be, so we need as socialists to be vocal on these priorities as much as we are on ESF or on other files. We need the group to be champions, but then we also need the younger generation to mobilize and to speak up about these issues. We need you to continuously be advocates and to help mobilize people in your communities on why it's important that we involve you, give you a voice, listen to you, and I'll close with something that I will take from my very first meeting with Sabrina. Do you remember this? Our first meeting, Sabrina said, our priority should be to make policy with young people, not for young people. So this is the spirit in which we should be developing policy at European level. And I take this to heart, Sabrina, and it's our commitment to do just this.
Thank you very much, Glenn, for your encouraging words. And my job is to conclude and to wrap up, and we ran out of time. So I want to conclude that everything that happened this afternoon was very encouraging. So I thank you all for your contribution here on the panel, as well as in the discussion, which was very lively. And I came into politics because I was fighting for a youth center in my hometown, and it took 20 years to realize it, and I was in politics then as a councillor for youth and culture, and I went into politics in the Social Democrat family because I'm convinced that successful local politics on town and city level is Social Democrat. And what we have to work on is that successful youth politics is Social Democrat. And therefore, we have to talk with young people, we have to listen to young people, and we also have to give them the opportunity to act, and then we will be successful, and this was a good start. So thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you for contributing.